So by now you've probably heard about the Travis Hunter situation with him and his fiance, and kind of seen everyone on the internet, criticizing pretty much every move they make, you know, whether they go to the bathroom, whether they eat cereal. They just can't really move without someone's opinion being placed on them. So I'm not really going to go too into that specifically. The only thing I will say is when you're going through a crisis, it is always great to have wisdom around you, and it's important sometimes to not live your life on and for the internet. Sometimes the best thing to do is to be quiet, and the right counsel around you will tell you when you need to speak up and when you need to be silent. So when you're going through a storm like that, it's important to have people who can look at the situation for you, especially if they're a little bit older than you, to gain some wisdom and some insight on how to navigate a crisis. But that is not my point. It kind of inspired me a bit to deal with very briefly, because I see a lot of crazy stuff on the internet. The subject just of finding the right person, finding your person as a believer. I see a lot of absurd things, frankly, on the internet about dating, about courting. As a Christian, not absurd necessarily in terms of sin, but I think we are can be very weird and overly spiritual, and that over spiritualization can actually lead us into very severe error. So I just want to speak a little bit, give my 2 cents, call it a day. You don't have to take with anything that I'm saying as the gospel truth, but do consider some of these points. I'm going to read a scripture that contextually has absolutely nothing to do with dating or marriage or courting or anything. However, there's a principle I do want to point out from the scripture. Amos 3 and 3. I lost my scripture here. There we go. Do not two walk together unless they have agreed to meet. Do not two walk together unless they agree. Does a lion roar in the forest when he has no prey? Does a young lion cry out from his den if he has taken nothing? Does a bird fall in a snare on the earth where there is no trap for it? Does a snare spring up from the ground when it has taken nothing? Is a trumpet blown in the city and the people are not afraid? Here, nothing to do with dating, but there is a principle here about agreement. There's also another principle about behavior. One, if people, organizations, groups, whatever, if people are coming together in any context, there needs to be some level of agreement, some level of something that is bringing us to this shared space and this shared table. Furthermore, people behave according to their nature. People behave according to their nature. Does a lion roar in the forest when there is no prey? Is a bird going to fall on a snare if there's no trap, no worm or whatever it is birds are looking for? Same thing with humans, human nature. People behave according to their nature. People behave according to their nature. So, in my little Sunday school message for today, it's very important that as you are looking to do life with a person, as you're dating them, courting them, whatever word semantics you want to use, talking to them, I'm not going to get into all that, but as you are dealing with someone, You want to find agreement. You want to find if your views, your focus, your perspective, your thoughts, if they're compatible enough to be in agreement. A lot of people, for example, if you want children and the other person does not want children, it's foolish to move any deeper, more than likely, because at your core, you are not in agreement with a major life decision, right? You're not in agreement. So the butterflies, the excitement, the feelings, the limerence, all the things going on in your nervous system that make you excited and happy about the attention you're receiving, you've got to put that to the side and deal with the logic and reality of agreement. If you believe in Jesus, they do not believe in Jesus. What agreement are you going to have at this point? If you have a very serious, if you're like a Travis Hunter or whatever, I don't know too much about his girlfriend's career, his fiance's career, but if you have a career that's going to require a lot of you to be away from home a lot of time, or going to require an extreme, inordinate amount of your attention, and you're with someone who wants you to be at home by 4 or 5 p.m. every day so that you can have dinner together by 6 p.m., you're not in agreement. You want to consider your life, your own life as an individual, think about what you need and think about what you want, and be looking for someone that is in agreement with that already. Not someone who's going to pretend to be in agreement with that only to gaslight you in the future after you get married, only to run away and divorce you, because they weren't really in agreement with that they were shape-shifting and morphing into agreement, or they were avoiding their own actual feelings, but they genuinely are in agreement with that. If you don't have agreement, then how are you really going to walk together in a healthy way? Second point, again from this scripture, which has nothing to do with this, but there are principles here. Does a young lion cry out from his den if he has taken nothing? Does a lion roar in the forest when he has no prey? Again, point of this soliloquy, this prophetic soliloquy, is these animals operate according to their nature. Same thing with humans. We do things according to our nature. Now, this is the tough part. A lot of people are not emotionally available. And if you're watching this, I want you to put it in the chat. If you're watching this live, put it in the chat. Emotionally available. What does that mean? They're not in touch with how they feel, with what they want, or what they think at their core. Because they have experienced pain in life, trauma, discomfort, troubling situations, they've gone through things young, or even as an older person, because they didn't want to deal with confronting the pain that they've experienced, they've pushed off their emotions. They've pushed off how they feel. They don't really know how they feel. When you ask them, sometimes they will literally tell you, I don't know how I feel. Because they have buried their emotions in order to avoid the pain and trouble of working through them. If you are dating, courting with someone that is not emotionally available to themselves, they will not be emotionally available to you. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. When you're dealing with someone who is not emotionally available to themselves, they will not be emotionally available to you. If they cannot be emotionally available to themselves to even admit their own emotions, there's no way they're going to be able to handle your emotions. And it can be simple. This means that when simple conflicts occur, they will not be comfortable enough to process them, and they will run from conflict. That running from conflict will create a lack of intimacy, and it's going to create a lot of problems. What it might look like is there are no arguments, no discussions, no fights, no trouble at all. But when the conflict comes, because they're not going to say anything, they're not going to process, they're not going to confront. But when the conflict is unavoidable and they have to deal with it, they're going to run. You cannot truly have agreement with an emotionally unavailable person because they don't even truly know what they feel. They don't even truly know what they think. They don't even truly know where they are mentally and emotionally. So, the version of themselves that they are presenting to you is a version that they don't even truly know. I said all of that to say, be careful about relationships with people who are not emotionally available because you don't really know what you're agreeing to yet. And they're not going to have the capacity to help to really deal with your emotions at any level. It's almost like making a blind agreement. You're signing a contract without reading any of the documents. You're just signing it. You're making a blind agreement. So you want to be careful about being with people that are not emotionally available because they don't know their nature. They don't know how they feel. Therefore, they don't really know their nature. Now, you may be a person that's emotionally unavailable. Well, if you want to have a healthy, lifelong marriage, relationship, you have to come to the place where you confront and deal with your emotions. It's important. It even affects your relationship with God, your inability or unwillingness to deal with your emotions, because you end up running from God whenever there's conflict, or you feel that you disappointed God, or you're not in God's will, or God is requiring something of you that you don't want to do. You'll run from God just like you'll run from a spouse or even friend or family member. It's important in relationships to be emotionally available. So the nature of a healthy relationship requires vulnerability and emotional availability. So everybody's going to tell you the things that matter are if you pray, if the person prays, or they lift their hands at worship. I see all the posts like, if a man lifts his hands at worship, you just know that he's, great with God or whatever. But men and women lift their hands at worship in one hand and then curse God in the next when something bad happens, right? So they go home and do crazy stuff. People's character in public worship does not determine the contents of their heart or their emotional availability by any definition. So there are things that are very spiritual that are important, and everybody always talks about those things. But my small contribution to your life in conversation can be for you to think about some of these very important, critical things. Half of Christian marriages fail, just like non-Christian marriages, including my own. Therefore, there are things beyond the spiritual element that dictate and determine the health and future of a healthy relationship. So, things to consider, things to pray about, and things to look at and address within your own self. Because the unhealed version of you is going to be attracted and is going to be attracted to things that may not be healthy for you. The unhealed version of you is going to accept things that are not healthy for you. The emotionally unavailable version of you is going to accept behavioral treatment, attitudes that are not going to be healthy for you in the long run. But as you heal, as you allow God to unravel the web of darkness, the web of trauma, and replace it with His wholeness, stability, and strength, your needs are going to change. Your values are going to change. Consistency is going to matter. All these things are going to be it's going to be a different world for you. So identify these things in yourself, change appropriately, and look for these things in other people so that you can make sound decisions. That's my little soapbox for the day. Hopefully this helps you in some way. If so, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Catch you next time.